Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session on how to onboard customers with just a few taps using Plaid Layer, our new instant financial onboarding experience. I'm Jina. I lead go-to-market, and I'm joined by my colleague, Kiefer, who leads engineering for the Layer product team. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to show you how you can improve your onboarding process, lower your customer acquisition costs, and start winning more customers as soon as tomorrow with Plaid Layer. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. We're going to stick around after this presentation to answer all of your questions, so feel free to just drop them in the chat throughout the session. This session will also be recorded and shared with you afterwards. And with that, let's dive right in. To start, who in the audience here has struggled with optimizing your sign-up flows? Improving the sign-up process and increasing customer acquisition is the top priority that we hear from all of our customers. Over the last year, we've spent a lot of time speaking with hundreds of our customers. What we've heard from you is that you are seeing up to 88% of users drop off throughout the onboarding flows. We hear this consistently from all of you. You're focused on optimizing your sign-up flows, but those optimizations are increasingly delivering incremental returns. Now, this is not a new problem that we focus on solving here at Plaid. In fact, Will and I both worked on improving conversion via optimizations to link in our past lives. Link is a critical part of your onboarding flow, but it's also where a lot of drop-offs happen. That's why we're constantly creating new designs and reducing latency to make link convert and work better for you. But those are incremental improvements.
Thanks, Jina. Rather than simply adding more incremental improvements, we decided to take a step back and figure out how to offer a higher level experience for our customers. So we looked at how we could provide the best of everything Plaid has to offer in a single flow. Specifically, what if we could combine lightning-fast identity verification, conversion-optimized seamless bank linking, and our network of millions of consumers who've chosen to save their data with Plaid to provide one instant onboarding experience. And that's exactly what Plaid Layer delivers. Layer, as Alan said, is the new standard for financial onboarding, an instant experience that provides everything you need to verify the user's identity, link their preferred financial account, and onboard them in as little as 15 seconds, just by collecting a phone number. For people in the Plaid network, Layer is an instant experience that makes signing up for your app as easy as typing in that phone number. And for you, that means higher sign-up conversion and more successfully onboarded customers. Based on testing so far, customers are already seeing better user experiences and conversion improvements. In fact, it takes the average user just 15 seconds to onboard with Layer, and that represents an 87% reduction in the time it takes to onboard. And as a result, customers are seeing an average of 17.5% relative lift in onboarding conversion. It's been amazing to see how Layer has helped companies like Possible Finance and Empower. And now Layer is available to everyone. So let's dig in and show you how this works. We have three key guiding principles: speed, security, and high trust data. Number one, speed. We custom built Layer to provide the fastest onboarding experience possible. And to do that, we're doing a couple of really neat things. First, Layer is an experience that is only shown when we're confident we can improve and speed up onboarding. We do this with our new eligibility system. When you collect and pass us the user's phone number, we immediately check for two things. Is the user in the Plaid network? And is the user eligible for Layer? In other words, does the user have saved data that meets your unique onboarding requirements? Only if both things are true, we'll tell you that Layer is ready and you can show the UI. Otherwise, we'll let you know they're not eligible and you can fall back to whatever other onboarding experience you'd like. I mentioned speed was the first guiding principle. To ensure zero latency experience, this eligibility check I mentioned only takes about 150 milliseconds. And because we've preloaded Layer in the background, as soon as we determine the user is eligible, Layer will pop up. Also, our customers have unique needs. That's why you have the ability to define what constitutes eligibility for Layer. For example, maybe you're only interested in certain pieces of identity data, such as the latest address and birthday, and email if it's available. Or perhaps you want everything and a bank account. You can define whether each attribute is required, optional, or should be omitted. And when an attribute is required, only users whose saved data contains that attribute will be eligible to sign up with the Layer UI. On the other hand, when an attribute is not required, users will be eligible for Layer, whether or not their saved data contains that attribute. So by taking your unique onboarding criteria into account from the get-go, we only show Layer when we're confident we can provide a superior, speedier onboarding experience.
Our second guiding principle is security. Layer delivers the fastest onboarding experience with all the rigorous security standards and anti-fraud checks you'd want built in. Before sharing back any sensitive information, we authenticate a user every single time to combat fraud. Once a user consents to signing up instantly via Layer, we authenticate them and confirm that they are the same trusted user that previously enrolled with Plaid to access faster returning experiences. Plaid takes a risk-based approach, leading with the lowest friction method possible that maintains a rigorous standard for security and dynamically adjusts authentication criteria based on various signals. We validate users with silent network authentication or passkeys, depending on the user and their device. And we pair this with additional anti-fraud measures, such as device identification or mobile carrier checks, to combat the risk of SIM swap attacks, port out attacks, and other fraud vectors. Once we authenticate the user, this is where our third guiding principle comes into play. Layer provides back all the trusted KYC-grade information you need to verify a user's identity and link their bank account. Remember when Will talked about those unique eligibility requirements just a moment ago? Every piece of information that you need to onboard a user will be presented to them. You'll notice that users are able to edit each field by hitting that pencil icon. We've specifically designed every aspect of the Layer experience in a BSA-compliant manner so that your user can quickly review, update, and submit their information for your verification process. The same goes for their bank account. Layer automatically prioritizes the bank account that's most relevant to your use case. For example, perhaps you only want a checking account, or maybe you want all the accounts at an institution. Layer automatically presents the option that matches your needs, but users still have the option to switch accounts or link a new one if they want. Depending on the financial institution, users will link their accounts in one click or be seamlessly redirected to their institution's login before completing the onboarding process. In addition to linking their bank account, when your user hits share, you can take all that trusted information Layer provides and send it to your existing KYC provider, or send it to Plaid Identity Verification to satisfy your KYC requirements. And that's it. Just by collecting a phone number, Layer gives you everything you need to instantly onboard a user.
At this point, you're probably wondering, what does it take to get started? And this is also my favorite part. Layer comes off the shelf with a lightweight interface that can be integrated in a day. If you've integrated with Plaid before, adding Layer to your app will be very familiar. It requires only a few additional lines of code. And if you haven't, don't worry, we'll go over it all now. But first things first, make sure to upgrade to the latest version of our SDKs. These include all the improvements I mentioned before. Now, it all starts with creating a link token. This is what many of you already do today, but here you'll want to make sure you specify Layer in the products array, in addition to the other Plaid products you may need. Here, in this code example, I'm also adding auth because we'll want to link a bank account. Remember when I said speed was one of our top priorities in designing Layer? Well, this is the moment where we've made a few optimizations to make that zero latency experience possible. Right after creating a link token, pass it to our SDK in order to start preloading Layer. This code should look familiar to those of you who have used Plaid Link today. It's how you create a handler object to manage a link session and receive callbacks. The main difference is that you'll want to invoke this create method earlier, before you even ask for the user's phone number, to ensure the Layer UX is ready to go the moment the user is eligible. Next, collect the phone number from the user and call handler submit. This is actually the only new client-side API we've added to support Layer. Submitting the phone number runs those eligibility checks I mentioned earlier in about 150 milliseconds. Once Layer finishes that eligibility check, you'll receive an event callback letting you know whether the customer is eligible. Layer ready. When you get that event, call the open method on the handler to immediately show the Layer UI. That's what you would do normally with any link session. If the customer is not eligible, you'll receive a Layer not available event. At that point, you can fall back to whatever's best for your use case and dispose the handler you created. Perhaps it's your previous onboarding flow or another traditional link session. Then, the user will go through the flow. You'll wait for the onSuccess callback. It will return a public token, which you'll send to your backend in order to retrieve the user permission data. This should also be very familiar to those of you who've used Link before and used token exchange after a Link session. Once you have that token, your backend can call our new user account session get endpoint and pull the user permission data shared in that Layer session. You'll see an example here on the slide. You'll notice the profile information is all available alongside an array of access tokens for any items connected as part of that flow. If you're using other Plaid products like transactions, this is when you'd want to call those additional product APIs with those item access tokens. And with that, you get all the information in order to verify the user identity, link their bank account, and onboard a user.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for walking us through that. We're super excited to work with all of you and see how Layer can improve your onboarding flow. If you're interested in using Layer, you can fill out the form that our team has just dropped in the chat. Or if you're a Plaid customer today, you can reach out to your Plaid account manager in order to get access. With that, we want to hear from all of you guys. So we're going to start going through the submitted questions at this time. Okay, give us just a second while we kind of filter through some of these questions and start answering them.
We've got a first question, so I can read that one. It's, can we get the full 9-digit social security number? What is the source? Yeah.
Awesome. I can take that first one, Will. So yes, you can get the full 9-digit social security number through Layer. That is definitely possible if you kind of set that as one of those required attributes that you would have mentioned as part of that eligibility criteria that Will walked us through. In terms of the data source that we're getting that from, within our identity verification product, as you all know, users actually have the ability to verify their identity, and then as well as like opt in to actually save that information with us. So that's one of the data sources from which we're getting that, where consumers are actually saving that information with Plaid when enrolling.
And if you'd like to see kind of all the schema of the data you can get back, the docs are live right now at plaid.com/docs/layer. You can drill into that API there and get more details on all that.
Okay, we have another question. Is this US only? Yes, Layer is available in the United States only for now.
There's another question. What if I need state ID or driver's license? And I think, yeah, we have plans to add support for identity documents in the future, but currently it's just the data you see in that API I mentioned earlier.
Okay, we got another question. Someone's interested in starting to use Layer. What is the cost? You can reach out to your Plaid contact. You can reach any member of our team if you fill out that form that our team has dropped into the chat, or just contact your Plaid account manager if you have one, and we can help you with that.
I can take the next one. There's someone asked, what happens exactly if someone's not in your network? So that eligibility check I mentioned earlier, right at that point in the flow, we're going to recognize that phone number is not in the network or has not chosen to previously save any data with Plaid, and therefore you will get that sort of Layer not available event callback, and which point you kind of the flow of what to do with a user that is not eligible for Layer is up to you, but we won't be showing any UI through Plaid Layer and Link. One more question. What exactly does the output look like? I guess, especially relating to the bank side of things. Yeah, so I think if you look back at that slide of the docs I mentioned earlier, you can kind of see the schema, but essentially what you get back, A, is dictated by kind of which attributes you've marked as required or optional. So you'll get all the required attributes back. You may get some of the optional ones back. And so there's kind of two forms of data in the response, and it's really the user's identity information, birth date, address, social security, depending on those attributes I mentioned. And then if you've had an attribute to require some sort of account to be linked, you'll get an array of any linked accounts. For instance, if they connect a bank and they have checking and savings, you might get 2 item access tokens. If you're not familiar with item access tokens, that is sort of our conduit for calling all our other Plaid APIs for a specific account and getting more additional data for a specific account. So if you've asked for the transactions product in addition to Layer, you would get an item access token for, let's say, my checking account, and you would be able to get the transactions list using that item access token with those other Plaid APIs.
We got another question here that says, going back to the authentication step, does this mean we can rely on Plaid to verify the phone line? So that's something that you all can decide in terms of how you want to implement Layer. Some of our clients using Layer to get the most optimal conversion gains are choosing to rely on Plaid's authentication to verify that phone line. Should you not want to do that from the get-go, you can, of course, maintain that phone verification that you all do as part of your standard onboarding process. And then again, if you want the most optimal conversion kind of gain in UX, yes, you could rely on our verification as part of Layer.
And keep the questions coming. This is great. So thank you, everybody. Next up, I see, is the lender or other fintech going to do their due diligence as well, or are you validating? Jina, I might toss that one to you.
Yes, that's a great question. So like I mentioned kind of in that security section, and then when I was going over that view, when you get back all of that trusted KYC grade information, if you have a customer identification requirement or KYC requirement, you will take that information that Layer has provided and verify that yourself. So either you can verify that using your existing KYC stack, so you don't have to make any changes there, or you can send it to Plaid Identity Verification and verify it. So in order to meet your compliance obligation, you will want to verify that information you get back through Plaid, through your own checks. Just take a note there, though, of course, we think about Layer information as trusted information because we also do our own validation and verification as part of when users join the Plaid network. But again, in order to meet your compliance obligations, you should make sure to verify that as well.
We've got another one. This is a really good one. What if the profile is in your network, but the phone number has changed? So I can speak to this a little bit. Jina can always add some additional flavor. So we do our best to keep that data as up to date as possible, right? If users are going through another Plaid flow where they're choosing to save their data or potentially update their phone number, we're going to kind of connect that whenever possible without risking any security or change. So that they need to still be able to prove that that is their phone and that is their device. And so I think the answer is going to be, it depends. If they have changed their phone number and never sort of gone through any other sort of Plaid flow, there probably wouldn't be a match. But if they have, we do our best to kind of keep things up to date and match as best as possible. And so it's not quite as simple as if they have a phone number and they change it, it's never going to connect again. We keep it up to date whenever possible when they go through a Plaid surface.
Okay, another question, is social security number required? No. So again, going back to how Layer works, you can customize what eligibility for Layer means to you. So for example, every single one of those attributes that Will showed, you can tell us whether that's required, optional, or is not required at all. So for example, if you do not want to collect social security number, you would just tell us to skip that attribute. So it is not a required field. None of those kind of attributes are required. You tell us what you want because, again, Layer is something that we've built to be helpful to your onboarding needs.
The other thing I'll add to that previous question too is that we have some sophisticated checks for SIM swaps and account and phone number recycling and everything. So we cover all the cases where you might inherit a phone number from someone else, but that would not be your profile, any of your saved data previously. So. Can layer be used to populate information into a native UI? That is a really good question. I'm not 100% sure. I might need a clarification on that. The part of the layer flow that we present in Link is not really like you can't really use that, kind of in your own UI. But when you are done and you get the profile information back, obviously all the data that the user has shared with you is available to you and can be shown in the UI. And we try to give you that in a nice format so that if you're trying to validate what the user has submitted and what you've received, that's obviously available. But as far as the flow itself, there's no kind of like we own that because we're really trying to optimize that 15 seconds to get someone onboarded as quickly as possible. And so, yeah, you'll be using our UI for that. No custom UI for that portion of the layer.
And just to add on to what Will just mentioned, we built Layer so that it's really a consumer permissioned experience, and we're really transparent about the kind of the sign up option that's available via Layer. So you'll want to, like Will mentioned, use our UI for that. Through and through, there are some kind of UI customizations that we can support. So when you kind of reach out to us, get access, if you're interested, we can kind of share all of those details with you all.
Here's one for you, Jina. Users have chosen to save their data, or users need to have chosen to save their data in order for this feature to work, or do you just need users to have previously registered using Plaid?
That's a great question. So users will have previously saved their information with Plaid through one of our various kind of what we call Remember Me experiences here at Plaid. So like I mentioned previously, if you verified your identity via Plaid before, on a Plaid-powered app before, there's actually a checkbox that you can see that says, remember my information to accelerate future experiences. The same goes for users that kind of go through any Plaid-powered bank linking experience. So users are proactively choosing to save their information in order to access faster returning experiences like Layer in order to be eligible.
The next one is, does Layer replace what is the auth flow today? Great question. So as I sort of mentioned in kind of how at the inception of Layer as a concept, it's sort of a higher level, like I want to do identity verification in addition to account linking and maybe connect auth or transactions or another Plaid product. So I think it's a complement and an alternative way that might work better for your onboarding use case, but I would not say that it is replacing that. As you saw in my example, I added the auth product with Layer. So I'm getting kind of the Layer experience, and then I'm kind of getting the access to our auth product. I think it's a complement. It sort of serves a different onboarding use case that may not all auth use cases may fit how Layer works today.
Yeah, so just to kind of double down on that, like we're really trying to provide an even more seamless experience. So for the users that are eligible and choose to sign up instantly via Layer, this does replace that kind of regular bank linking experience. As I mentioned, depending on the institutions, we will direct a user to their institution to log in if that's an institution that requires that. For supported institutions, they can kind of link that account just in one click when they hit share. So from an experience standpoint, for eligible users, Layer will be replacing that bank linking experience.
And just to clarify, you get the same, if I use a traditional link session with the auth product and use Layer with the auth product, you'll get the same auth data and the same API access for that product as well. So another question is, are the API docs out now? Yes, they are out now. If you go to plaid.com/docs/layer, you can see those. Also, when you reach out to your account manager or customer rep, we can provide additional sort of integration guides and other things as some of those docs get expanded over the next week or so. Okay, we have a couple minutes left. Any other questions? These have been really good so far.
There was a general, someone mentioned how many users are kind of opted in for this kind of sign up mechanism. So like Will mentioned, you can learn more about the experience. You'll see that we are able to offer this kind of experience to tens of millions of people already today that have saved their information with Plaid. Hey, Will, maybe a question. Oh,
yeah, I'll read that one. There is basically how long does it take to implement Layer within my organization? So I'm going to say the answer is twofold there. If you have an existing Plaid link integration, the Layer integration is incredibly easy. The only real net new thing is to move your client-side creation of the Plaid object earlier so that we can do that optimized kind of preloading. And then second, to submit the phone number. But really the rest, creating a link token and then exchanging the kind of public token after the link session for your data is the same as every other link flow. So if you have link integrated already, I'm going to say it's like on the order of an engineer could do it in a day. If you don't have Plaid at all integrated, then there's going to be a bit more lift. But we've got lots of guides and docs and integrations for links on our website. You can check that out. But it's still, it just kind of depends on your infrastructure and how things work. We've got SDKs for all the cases, so I think we've got you covered on all those. Yeah.
Another question about the social security number field and attribute. Does Plaid share the full social security number? Yes, we do share the full social security number upon the user consenting and actually confirming that information and sharing it. Okay, so someone asked a question, not an ignorant question, but how is the Plaid network defined? When I've kind of touched on this previously, but at the end of any kind of Plaid-powered experience or throughout the experience, we actually give users the ability to essentially remember their information with Plaid in order to access faster returning experiences. This exists in our identity verification experience that I've touched upon, as well as our bank linking experience. And so that's really what that means, broadly speaking, is people who are proactively choosing to save their information with Plaid in order to access those faster returning experiences. I got another question here, which I'm going to take some liberties in interpreting. It says, do values need to be true for Layer? So what I'm thinking this is maybe asking about is those eligibility criteria that Will mentioned. So if the question is, do all of those kind of fields and attributes need to be true? The answer is any attribute that you told us is required must exist in order for us to show Layer as a sign-up method. For the person who submitted that, if that was not your question, let us know. Basically, we'll only take users down, again, this happy path of Layer if we're confident that they'll be their saved information with Plaid meets your requirements. So we have a high confidence that we'll be able to improve the user experience for them, as well as deliver higher conversion for you for those users.
Well, I think we are just at time. So thank you for all the great questions and the engagement. We really appreciate it. We're really excited. We can't wait for you to check this out and play with it. And Jina, do you want to point them at the contact form if they want to reach out one more time?
Yes. So one more time, we are super excited to work with you all. We're going to share the recording for the session. Just follow that link in the chat that the team has dropped for you if you are interested in getting started with Layer. Or again, reach out to your Plaid account manager if you have one. And we're really excited to hear from you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for any of the questions that we weren't able to get to, there's actually a lot. We'll follow up with folks when we share out the recording and get back to you.
And you can ask them on that form as well, too. We're happy to help. Thank you all.
Thank you.